If you know anything about me, you know I fit right into the English teacher stereotype of reading into things. Like, a lot into things.
Alright, let's keep it simple, no hidden meanings, straight to the point. John ate spaghetti for lunch.
Now, this next passage is particularly brilliant. John ate spaghetti for lunch. Now, spaghetti symbolizes the pain and suffering that us individuals feel on a daily basis. And John voluntarily eating this spaghetti shows the self-destructive nature of us.
Nothing is ever just nothing, and the usage of a certain word above others will hold a different connotation than possible synonyms. Call it what you will, perfectionism, writer's brain, or overthinking, but it's somewhat true, isn't it? Authors often have little details which, accidentally or not, mean more than what's on the surface. So in this corner session, I'll be exercising my free will to hyper-examine the 2023 film Wonka, speculate as to why it's so magical, and present a couple theories that probably aren't canon, but are based on some small details that caught my attention the first time I watched it. And those details have nagged me ever since. I'm Veronica, and welcome back to the corner. I know I sort of talked about Wonka in my last corner session, and if you haven't seen it, go back and watch the vid. Maybe leave a like if you didn't deem it worthy. But I can't help talking about it again. Some stories are made of pure childlike magic, and Wonka is no exception. It's bold, it's colorful, its world building is simple on the surface, yet holds great weight once you think it through more. And it leaves room for you to breathe while making certain things crystal clear. Rather than get bogged down in its messaging, over-the-top dramatics, or a complicated plot, the film keeps things pretty simple. Young man wants to make magic chocolate, but must face a corrupt trio of chocolate-making monopolies with the help of a book-loving orphan and some down-on-their-luck adults. And on the way, he discovers that the chocolate isn't what matters, it's the people you share it with. With this simplicity, the film allows us to sit back and enjoy the magical antics and engaging musical numbers while sinking into the colorful, whimsical nostalgia of our childhoods. There is a secret ingredient to the recipe that makes Wonka so special, however. Unlike many films that have original iconic source material, it doesn't try too hard. That's part of the magic of it. Wonka is what fandoms tend to call a pre-canonical spin-off, a story which predates the original source material and expands on pre-existing lore. This sort of project can go two ways. Either you try to make your work a legacy, or you allow your story to exist as something of its own, while paying homage to its origin. There's nothing wrong with living up to the legendary. I'm talking more about films like Wish, which try to mask as this really grand legacy piece for Disney, only to end up becoming a massive flop because they tried to oversell. I mean, think about it. The marketing was everywhere. The people behind the project talked about how magical and incredible it was, and that it was going to be the homage to Disney's legacy. But ultimately, the film failed because it tried too hard to sell itself as part of a bigger legacy rather than its own thing, leaning heavily on something else to make it great. There were other things that made Wish a bad story, but I think those faults wouldn't have been as picked apart if Disney hadn't tried to sell it so hard. This is a typical pitfall of Disney. Each story begs you to take it seriously because of who made it or what it came from, rather than its own merits. Moana 2 does the same thing, playing into the audience's love of the original and throwing around references to the first film rather than building a compelling story with meaningful stakes and internal character development. As evidenced by the past 10 years of flops and failures, the legacy and nostalgia selling point does little to actually inspire said nostalgia or a decent story. On the other hand, Wonka, while full of references to the book, though mostly the 1971 film, sort of exists as its own thing. In its trailer, it doesn't talk about what the audience already knows. We already know our protagonist is from Charlie and Chocolate Factory. We already know the story is super famous. We already know he's the greatest chocolatier in the whole world. What we don't know is how he got there. The first full minute of the trailer is spent, yes, on reinforcing that Willie makes magic chocolate, but also on establishing the stakes, the vibes, the characters, and the magic via music, visuals, and witty quips.
Many people have come here to sell chocolate. They've all been crushed by the chocolate cartel. You can't get a shop without selling chocolate, and you can't sell chocolate without a shop.
No No daydreaming.
What are we gonna do, Willie?
Huh.
Huh?
Huh.
A double huh.
Do you have a pencil and paper?
Uh-huh.
I got an idea.
Take note, the music is original. The jokes are about its own content. It focuses on giving us a peek into the characters we're going to meet, and the story it's going to tell. And it's so confident in that story that it doesn't slam down a whole bunch of bold references to the original. It exists within itself and stands on its own. You could go into the theater and watch it without knowing anything about the book or the movie, and you would enjoy it, as its own thing. Now compare that with the Moana 2 trailer.
Just how far we'll go.
This is a call from the ancestors.
Hidden in a terrible storm. It's an ancient island. Setting foot on its sands would break the curse, bring our people together again.
I know what I have to do. Moe, I could really use your help.
Can I get a chee-hoo?
You will be destroyed, and your wayfinder too.
Now I kind of miss the lava monster. Ow! Ow!
What if you don't come back?
I'll be back. I promise.
Do I hear people?
Those aren't people. Cock 'em. You guys, we got this. Bring it on, Coco.
It spends a minute reminding us that Moana is a big hero, throws in a curse that wasn't even hinted at in the original film, and plays into the vibes and narratives we already know about. The Moana wayfinds, the Maui Chihoos, the Phantom Spoons, the chicken axe is dumb, the ocean high fives, and the pig gets to come this time. It constantly refers back to the original and throws in tons of callbacks, all the while making itself out to be this epic adventure. I mean, every trailer tries to do that in a way. It's meant to generate excitement and speculation, and for sequels, it's meant to make you go, "Oh yeah, those guys, I want to see what they're up to." But a good sequel or spin-off or prequel doesn't have to tell us the hero is epic. It shows us. No shots of people fainting, no "remember us" vibes. It's organic. There are other things that make a sequel or spin-off good, like planning to have one when you write the original story, but the point right now is Moana 2 stands on the shoulders of a giant, but rather than leap to the clouds, it takes the opportunity to remind us how tall the giant is. Wonka stands on the shoulders of giants and creates a hover chalk so it can touch the moon. So how does Wonka do that, aside from producing a trailer which hits good beats and doesn't oversell itself? Anyone can make a good trailer. Can the story it advertises live up to it? Let's start by asking if Wonka meets the qualifications for a well-written story. Literally every author and their second cousin can tell you the basic formula of a story. Inciting incident, rising action, climax, resolution. That's the base of a story. The heart of a story is the main character and their journey. That journey is called the monomyth, or the hero's journey. Traditional main characters are beloved by the audience in some way because they're relatable, or they're likable, or they're funny, or their journey is impactful, moving, or meaningful in some way. Or, maybe they're just overhyped. A well-written main character has a set of values, or a moral compass. Believe it or not, but we are what we read. Read a lot of inappropriate romance, and your mind will be dirtier than a sewer system. Watch a film with a strong protagonist, and you might find yourself standing a bit taller, maybe trying bolder things. The media we consume influences us. We know it's true. I hate to say protagonists should always be role models and never do anything wrong, because stories tell us something about the world, and sometimes that message is that we're not perfect and need to become better individuals. Meaning, the protagonist might be a total jerk who learns she needs to make a change. Characters are there to make mistakes, and to grow from them. But if you don't have some standard as to what makes a mistake, how do you know your characters are making them? Beliefs don't always line up with actions, and that can be the start of an internal conflict. which is how you add another layer to your character, make them relatable, or at the minimum, make them admirable. Wonka holds up to this standard. Each character has a well-rounded personality and a set of values. Willie upholds a moral compass centered around generosity, optimism, honesty, and imagination. These are things that he values, even in subtle ways, throughout the film. Sometimes, these things leave him vulnerable to trickery, deception, and abuse, and that makes his morals what we call an Achilles heel, which is a type of character flaw. He eventually gains greater understanding of the world and gains a stronger sense of justice, learning that the chocolate isn't as important as the people you share it with. Or that friendship, honesty, and imagination trump corruption, power, and ambition. Even our antagonists have a form of value set. The chocolate cartel believes in their own superiority, in the value of money and power above all else, and that those things are worth killing for. The chief of police loves food, particularly chocolate, more than the values that he as the chief of police is meant to uphold.
I can't just go around roughing up your competition.
1,800 boxes.
Oh, deal.
Those aren't moral values, but they are still a system of beliefs, even if they're wrong, and that's a realistic portrayal of humanity. So, that's a basic box checked off. Another box is plot. Do the characters want something? What is it? How are they prevented from getting it? Do they gain something new along the way? And how do they ultimately triumph and earn it through their actions? From the outside, Willie's desires and motivations seem pretty clear-cut. He wants to open up his own chocolate shop and make world-beloved magical chocolates. But once you dig deeper, you discover that what Willie truly desires is to reconnect with his deceased mother, and his entrepreneurial wants are actually a manifestation of his longing to feel his mother's presence, which is actually such a tragic and real representation of grief and loss. Though the film doesn't talk too much about it, his grief and love for his mother are at the core of his motivations and actions, and eventually, that manifestation shifts from seeking her memory and presence to living out her legacy. And obstacles come along to stop him from fulfilling his dream. First, he's tricked into becoming an indentured servant, which forces him to find a way out to get out of this virtual imprisonment to sell his chocolates and make money to buy himself free, if not open up his own shop. Then there's the corrupt chief of police, who works for the cartel, and once he finds a way to dodge the chief, he has to face the powerful reach of the cartel, who come up with all sorts of ways to slow him down. But, of course, they don't stop him forever.
Let me tell you.
At the end of the story, Willie more than triumphs by taking down the cartel and the corrupt chief, allowing for power to transition to someone morally upright, and for Willie himself to get what he wanted, with a bit more emotional clarity and peace. So, do the characters want something? Check. Do they face obstacles? Check. Do they gain new knowledge? Check. Is there a resolution at the end? Absolutely. So, with all the technical positives out of the way, I can now talk about the subjective positives, why I personally love Wonka. I guess you could say it's more personal. The soundtrack sounds like something out of my dreams and could become a Broadway musical if someone gave it a chance. I absolutely love all the songs. They're very reminiscent of older movie musicals, but a bit modern. And the best part is that pretty much all of them are original. A couple of songs are from the 1971 film, but they're more there to solidify the origin story theme of the film, and they aren't obnoxiously nagging us, unlike certain Disney sequels. I mean, we only hear Pure Imagination 2 times. Once at the very beginning of the film as a, instrumental motif, and then at the very end. And, I feel like that's good because it didn't oversell it. Like I said, Wonka doesn't try too hard. So yeah, the soundtrack hits all the right notes. Literally. It always keeps up with the emotions it's trying to convey without losing the whimsical vibes. Speaking of vibes, I really love the ways the film dances with this Dickensian concept of indentured servitude and class systems, while incorporating Dahl's larger-than-life character types. Mrs. Scrubbit is truly reminiscent of some of Charles Dickens' villain characters, and she also reminds me of Victor Hugo's minor antagonist, the Thénardiers. Think about it. She hides tons of hidden fees for staying at her inn, like the Thénardiers do, but unlike the Thénardiers, she then forces you to work it off in her washhouse, like an indentured servant or slave. And her vibes, her personality, her cruelty, which seems almost larger than life, makes her seem like a villain that Dahl himself would write. This movie brings me so much joy, and I say that unironically. You know that if you've got me choked up for half the movie, that it's tugging on all the right heartstrings. I turn off my TV after watching it with the biggest smile on my face. Good movie musicals are so hard to find in the 21st century, and Wonka was even more than I ever wanted it to be. So, you've stayed with me through the rants, the gushing, the singing, the poorly timed jokes. You must be here for the theory. Never fear, it is as dumb as you think it is. I'm sure everyone already saw this, but the first time I watched the movie, I noticed each chocolatier has its own color. Okay, that's kind of obvious. Willy is purple, Slugworth is blue, Fickelgruber is green, and Prodnose is yellow. But Willy doesn't just wear purple. Underneath that iconic purple coat, he wears a certain shade of emerald green. Yes, I know he also has a yellow scarf, but green is sort of a recurring color in his wardrobe, and I get it. It pairs nicely with the purple. But since we never know who Willy's father is, and since it's sort of a mystery as to why he and his mom are living on a houseboat, I have a theory which might explain both things. I am going so far as to speculate that Fickelgruber is Willy's father. The colors in this film are so distinct that I cannot stop myself speculating and forming theories.
I am your father.
No! My theory is that Willy's mother used to be like him. She made chocolate, and she wanted to open up a shop in the Galleries Gourmet. She caught the eye of Fickelgruber, they have a relationship, he finds out she's pregnant, and he does the same thing to her that he'll eventually do to Willy. Yeti sweat and all. I mentioned the Yeti sweat because how did the cartel know Yeti sweat could do what it did? I doubt they were traveling the world and finding out magical secrets. Conclusion, they must have heard it from a source, and I think that source was Willy's mother. I think Willy's mom told Fickelgruber some of her chocolate-making secrets. And if you're wondering why Willy had to travel the world to find out this stuff, he never says that all of his secrets came from his travels. Maybe his mom knew some things. So Willy's mom left the galleries, her reputation in tatters, and started her houseboat life, which was how she would raise her and Fickelgruber's son, Willy, until her untimely death. This also explains why Willy's mom knew what the galleries looked like, and her slight emotional shift when Willy says they should go there and make chocolate. The big question is, if this theory holds up, which, if we take the Yeti sweat and the color coding into account, it does, did Fickelgruber know Willy was his son? I think maybe he did, but didn't say anything to the others, for obvious reasons. This is a secret that would destroy him. And the real question is, did Willy know? Because he's the one who really matters in all of this. It's pretty safe to say that he doesn't. If he knew who his father was, I think we would have heard about it or had some hint as to who he was. None of this is canon, of course, which is why we never heard who his father was, and it also wasn't important to the story. Willy's relationship with his mother, as I said, is the heart of the story. It's just a theory, but I love it, and I will subscribe to it until I'm proven otherwise. Hey, I worked hard to find proof of this one. It was in the pudding. The magic pudding. This sort of takes me all the way back to the start. Wonka gives us a story with room to read into it. It gives us open doors, characters with depth that we can look into on our own, magical world building with intricate details, and a plot which seems simplistic but turns out to be deeper than we thought. Believe it or not, stories like this are sort of rare nowadays. Disney is dying, people's sense of magic and imagination are quickly going down with it, and the real art of storytelling is crumbling because we lost sight of what makes for a good story. We as a society have become bogged down in cynicism and postmodernism and extremes to the point that we've forgotten how to see the beauty, wonder, nuance, and creativity in the world, and we've forgotten how to see it in ourselves. But we don't have to. We can write stories as magical as Wonka. We can find the way again. It takes a lot of work and failures, but it also requires something else. Confidence in the radical. Roald Dahl's stories were so remarkable because he took a leap. He thought up concepts so out there and so creative that no one's been able to replicate them. He said what he wanted and what he needed, and he didn't apologize for taking the stance he did. Heck, he actually took a stance, which is more than I can say for most authors nowadays. Modern media tends to flow with society. It says what society wants to hear rather than what it needs to hear. It drags itself down into moodiness, subjective tone, or passivity. It's too scared to offend us, to be wronged, to be laughed at, and that is why stories have lost their spark. Art comes from difference and diversity. It comes from the courage to speak and think things where the others might mock or criticize. To regain the spark, we have to engage. We have to think. We have to open our eyes to the world around us and think critically about it and form actual opinions on them rather than spouting what's popular. But more importantly, we have to give our creatives that freedom. And that starts with each of us as individuals, like Willie said.
I guess that's why there's one other thing to do. Change the world.
Thanks for putting up with my self-indulgent rants and theories. I hope you were able to follow my logic and get my point. But I mostly hope that you enjoyed the video. If you're looking to listen to someone who is crazy about stories and loves dissecting them until there's nothing left, you've come to the right corner. If you want to find out whenever I come back to the corner, punch that subscribe button. And if you think this video is worthy, hit that like button. And I'll see you next time I come back to the corner. Bye!